Welcome, everybody, to the Five on the Floor podcast. This is your host, Alphonse, Sidney. And before we get to tonight's episode about the terrible, horrible Brooklyn Nets game that we just finished watching, we're going to talk about our next watch party, which hopefully will go better than tonight. It's going to be, once again, at GQ's Craft House. If you guys remember the last time we were at GQ's Craft House, the Heat beat the Bucks in double overtime without Jimmy Butler. So everybody who talks about the 5 reasons curse, GQ's Craft House is not cursed. And also GQ's Craft House has great craft beer. It was a great time last time. We had 50 people show up. The place was raucous. There were some videos online. We gave away T-shirts, memorabilia. They gave us some free appetizers. It was just a great time. So the next watch party is at GQ's Craft House. The Heat are playing the Thunder. It's next Friday night, January 17th. The game starts at 8 p.m. We'll be out there at 7 p.m. I'll be drunk by 7:30, 7:35. And it's just going to be a great time. So anybody who's ever come out to our watch parties, win or lose, 5 Reasons Sports has a great time. All right, so that's next Friday, January 17th, Heat at Thunder. And the address for GQ's Craft House is wrong on the flyer because I had Giancarlo Navas from Heatbeat do it. So, of course, he made a typo. It's 4497 North University Drive in Lauderhill. So all you guys in Central and North Broward, this one's for you. Come on out. Have a great time with us next Friday, January 17th at GQ's Craft House. And now, tonight's show.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a Miami Heat and NBA podcast from Ethan Skolnick with Alphonse Sidney, a.k.a. Alf 954. Brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, welcome back. Once again, I am your host, Alphonse Sidney. With me today is Greg Leif Sylvander, Lefty Leif on Twitter, the Insider, Saucy Nuggets. Leif, I need you tonight because I need a dose of positivity. I am not one of these Heat fans that get apoplectic after every loss. That's a lie. I do get apoplectic after every loss, but I usually am able to contain my feelings. Tonight is not one of those nights. I saw a lot of offensive rebounds. I saw 21 second chance points. It actually might be more. It was 21 second chance points the last time I checked because I kind of checked out at the end of the game. I got pissed off and stopped paying attention. So there was a lot of you had a hungry Nets team off of a 7-game losing streak at home. What did you see? Let's talk about – okay, before we get into the negatives, let's talk about the first half. When the Nets came out firing, the Heat somehow sustained. They got back in it. They actually took the lead, went to the second half with a 12-point lead. What did you see from the Heat in the first half?
I mean, the first half was good. And it's funny you say, like the way that game ended and needing a dose of positivity. That was a tough watch. I mean, that was not the way you want to end games. And particularly the way that they looked in the first half compared to the way they came out in the second half. They almost played the second half not to lose. And I know that that's kind of cliche, but that really was kind of the vibe of the team. No effort. You saw, those guys get into what is Spo calling the 50-50 balls. And, then Spencer Dinwiddie is going crazy on us, had a great game. So it was not fun. But honestly, 3-game road trip, I expected to go 2-1. I didn't know where the one loss would come from. I probably thought it was in Indy because historically we do not win in Indiana. So we got that game. So, we lost this one to Brooklyn, got a rebound against New York. So it's not that doom and gloom from my perspective.
It's not doom and gloom. Even with the loss, they're still in second place in the Eastern Conference. All right, so it's not time to panic or anything else because they were 1.5 games up on the Boston Celtics entering tonight. So even with the loss, they're still in second place, still have the third best record in the league. You had a team in Brooklyn, like I said, coming off a 7-game losing streak. They're at home. The one thing I saw tonight is that the Heat have been winning these games, right? Down 3, 45 seconds left. They have found a way every single time. Tonight was bothersome because there's absolutely no reason they should have been in that position. It's not one of these games where they clawed back and they were down 12 with 4 minutes left. There were times in the fourth quarter they were up 9 points, right? It just didn't – they did not execute down the stretch. And it's funny, and I'll let you talk about it, they didn't execute against the zone, which is –
I know. It's funny and ironic the way that works out. And it's funny the way the Nets came back. It wasn't in one burst. It was like they chipped away at it, and they chipped away at it. And then all of a sudden we're down 1. And then it's like the lid came on the basket. And it was frustrating to watch. And then, like, you look at the box score, to waste between Jimmy and Bam, you get 55, 15, and 9 assists, and you waste that game. Like, you got to get those games when you get a big Jimmy night, particularly with the shooting stuff that we've seen. Bam was, hitting key buckets down the stretch. But, that was kind of too little too late in terms of the momentum. So it was a very frustrating way to finish.
Well, you talk about a weird box score, right? So you talked about the numbers from Jimmy and Bam. Jimmy and Bam were the 2 worst in plus-minus in this game. Somehow, Bam was minus 16 and Jimmy was minus 15. The entire bench – James Johnson was +9, Derrick Jones Jr. +7, Goran Dragic, who missed some big shots down the stretch, +9, Tyler Hero +2. The entire starting lineup was in the minus. So, is this going to be one of these games where Heat Twitter, Heat fans are going to make too much of what happened tonight?
I don't think so. But also, that box score makes no sense to me. I think you're going to need to have somebody like Nikias come on to kind of explain how that's possible, that Bam and Jimmy can jump off the page as undoubtedly the best 2 players that carried us, but also are, having the most negative, plus minus. So that's a weird box score. But I don't think that the fan base is going to overreact because they didn't lose positioning from a seeding perspective. And we've seen that. I mean, they just can't lose 2 in a row. That's the whole thing. They haven't done it all year. Let's make sure that that doesn't happen now.
To the stinking Knicks.
Yes.
And look at this.
Then we get frustrated.
Then we can get apoplectic. Look at this. They only 7 turnovers tonight.
Yeah.
They took care of the ball.
They should have won that game.
They
scored enough.
They scored enough. 113 points against Brooklyn should be enough. Brooklyn is the second worst team in the league when it comes to 3-point percentage. Tonight, they shot it from 3. They shot 34% from 3. The Heat, unfortunately, shot 24%. And this is something I talked about with Alex the last time the Heat lost. When the Heat aren't hitting their threes, they're not winning games.
Yeah, and I mean they're the second best 3-point shooting team in the league for a reason, and like that's been a huge strength. The gravity that Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero and them guys give opens everything up, and if those baskets aren't going in, it is not pretty at all. The offense gets really, really stagnant. They were, it kind of looked like a little bit of the old Miami Heat. I mean, Goran had some moments that were good, but it was a tough ending.
And you have Derrick. And one of the things we talk about on this show, we talk about who's the 5 on the floor at the end of the game. And as much as I love how Derrick Jones Jr. has been playing lockdown defense, he's not the guy.
They left him wide open.
And you're playing 4-on-5 at that point because they don't respect him from the perimeter because he's a 24% 3-point shooter on the year, and he missed a big 3 at the end of the game pretty predictably, right? So Derrick Jones Jr. had a good game, but he was 0 for 4 from 3. So it looks to me like when you look at this box score, you look at the last couple of times the Heat have lost, if the Heat aren't hitting those 3-point shots, it's very hard for them to win these games unless they have one of those tremendous defensive efforts like they had against Toronto. Tonight was not a defensive game. This game was up and down all game long. And also the rebounding. So you have 2 things. When the Heat don't win the rebounding battle, and when they don't shoot the 3-point when they don't shoot 3-pointers very well, they're going to lose games. And we've been talking about turnovers all year, but no matter how high the turnovers are, the Heat they can get away with that as long as they out rebound and they shoot the three very well. It doesn't. So even at a 7 turnover game, it just doesn't matter if the Heat aren't hitting their shots.
Yeah, I mean, this roster was built for shooters. Like, if you talk about the ceiling and the floor of this season, it all has to do and is predicated on them shooting well. Like, I feel like this team that we saw tonight and the way that they shot, if this is who showed up most of the time, we would be talking about an 8th seed type team, which a lot of fans and media, pundits said that that's where the Heat's range was going to be. Where the upside always was if all these guys were hitting shots, and that's what they've done all season. So this roster is built that way. They need the shooters to make shots, and it just didn't happen tonight.
Let's talk about a positive, because today there was a Bleacher Report video on the timeline that got spread around where they were talking about how the makeup of the Eastern Conference All-Stars has really changed over the last year, with so many stars moving west, Kawhi Leonard, and so many guys rising to prominence. And they based 75% of the video on Bam Adebayo. You looked at Bam tonight. Bam was facing a guy in Jared Allen who is known for protecting the rim, known for being a shot blocker, known for being a guy that's just very, very difficult to post up and score on. And Bam ate his lunch all night long. And with a series of different moves, jump shots, little runners, touch shots, layups, dunks, up and unders, footwork. He had 5 or 6 assists, just doing everything tonight.
Man, the stutter step pull up jump shot. I did not think I was going to see Bam Adebayo taking that shot this season. I thought that was maybe like a next year kind of evolution moment. So it's crazy to watch how the ascension that, every game, it seems like he's like bringing out just a little something different. You see him flash it. Maybe like a week ago, you see him flash that stutter step jumper, but then he actually executes it a week later. And like, it feels like that's happening week after week.
When I talked to him in the locker room, one of the things he said about his aggressiveness as far as when he's facing the basket, not to mention the fact that he's bringing the ball up a ton. He's running point a ton from the 5 or the 4 position, whatever you want to call it. But
that
the
is
fact
insane. People don't that is insane that is all of a sudden what has happened. Sorry to interrupt.
You're looking at Derrick Jones Jr. gets the ball out on the inbounds, and he looks directly at Bam. You would think in that situation, Derrick Jones Jr. is going to bring the ball. No, Bam, you're the guy. You're the one who starts our offense. And the fact that he's so aggressive facing the basket, and we used to talk about this all the time, that he would face the basket, and the first thing he would do is look to pass. And the league got used to that, and now he's taking advantage of that, right, where he does these Kelly keepers, except it's not an up and under layup. He's dunking on fools' heads, right? And it's the aggressiveness and the confidence. And when I talked to him about it, he said it's not just the coaching staff, it's his teammates. And he calls it a battery, right? He said it's a battery in your back. He's like, if your teammates are saying it, your coaches are saying it, everyone's telling you to be aggressive. If you have that behind you, you can't be stopped. And it looked like tonight he had all of that put together.
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, it's happening week over week over week. It's just unfortunate that they kind of squandered that performance because – yeah, you're going to get the 15 and 15 nights out of him, and that's going to happen. But the primary scoring stuff that he did tonight and actually like getting buckets, that those kind of Bam nights are not necessarily, I would say, his forte yet. But you can see there where the evolution is going to come next. So that's a positive to take. That's something that we can be feeling good about when we wake up tomorrow.
And Jimmy has a huge night tonight, right? Super efficient, 33 points. I mean, offensively dominant. But what does it say to you that these nights where Jimmy is offensively dominant are a lot of time those are the nights that the Heat lose?
because Miami Heat basketball is about ball movement and team basketball. And like, I know that that's some cliche culture stuff to say, but truthfully, when this offense is really scary is when you don't know where it's coming from, and they're, everyone's flying around, the ball's whipping from side to side, and they're hitting shots. And trust me, we're going to need the 33-point, 35-point Jimmy playoff game. Those are going to be necessary to advance. So you want a guy that can go get that kind of that kind of scoring and do it efficiently. But honestly, like most nights, we would rather let him get his 21, get his 22, and have everybody else shooting at their normal clips.
Yeah, and it's when this team wins, you have 6-7 guys in double figures, right? You don't have two guys being dominant like they were tonight. And it's not to say these guys were selfish in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
they did what they had to do because of the way the team was playing. You had 4 guys in double figures tonight, which is not a recipe for the Heat to win. You had Kendrick Nunn with 10, and he scored, I think, 8 of those in the first quarter. And then you had Goran Dragic with 17, and he came up short a little bit late. And then you just did not have the rebounding tonight. You didn't have the defense. One of the things I'll talk about Bam again is there were a couple times where Spencer Dinwiddie got the switch, and we've talked about this time and time again. This was one of the first games where I saw the guard not even try Bam, where they saw the switch and Dinwiddie was just like, it's a waste of my time. Let me pass it over to Karis LeVert or somebody else.
It's almost like them Zach Lowe articles are getting circulated.
Yeah. Do not think the Bam switch is a positive for you. It really isn't. I guess the next thing we can do is we talked about Bam. We talked about the fact that he has just been stellar. The buzz around the league now is Bam belongs in the All-Star game, and everybody getting all silly about Taco Fall having more votes than him. Who cares? Remember that fan vote only counts for 50% now, right, of the starting lineup.
That's correct.
So it doesn't matter. The coaches know how good Bam is. Even if he's not a starter, who cares? Jimmy Butler, if he's not a starter, who cares? You're going to have two All-Stars this year. So Heat fans, everyone calm down. I see people getting worried about Duncan Robinson not getting an invite to the three-point contest. Nobody's gotten an invite to the three-point contest yet. So everyone just needs to calm the hell down about all this stuff. All right, yes. So when we come back from break, we're going to have Ethan Skolnick on, who was at the game tonight, who witnessed this monstrosity, and he'll give us his takes next.
Hey, good to be with you. We actually got John Kozan here, too. You follow him at Brass Jazz. So both of us were up here covering the game at Barclays. Before we get to anything, though, Al, we have a sponsor for this segment. So I'm going to introduce everybody to that sponsor. Are you guys there right now? No, Leif can't be because he's not in Florida. Are you at the new Gold Club right now, Alphonse? Are you there? Is that where you're camped out?
No, I'm going after this because I need to drown my sorrows.
All right, well, go drown your sorrows there. Great place to do it. They're open every day. The new Gold Club in Pompano Beach, open every day from 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. Of course, it's in Pompano. It's real close to Powerline Road and Copans Road. So if you're familiar with that area, that's where it is. But it's not just a gentleman's club. Also, the ladies are welcome. Not just welcome, but they're free all the time. So if you have a girlfriend, you've got a wife, you've got both, bring them to the new Gold Club. And here's the thing also, they've got a kitchen open all night long. And like I said, no charge for women. If you go on Mondays, $5, you call it. You basically bring your glass and they fill it up all night for $5. So that's the new Gold Club in Pompano Beach. And that's a siren behind me, Alf. I'm not exactly sure why. But anyway, so I'm here with John, and this is a much different podcast than I was expecting. Let's do this. I don't want to sort of rehash everything for our listeners, but what was your one takeaway each so I can kind of play off of this?
I think we both decided that the game was terrible. No, we talked about the fact that when the Heat lose a rebounding battle and when they shoot poorly from three, it's very hard for them to win. And that, and then we also just took away from the fact that Bam is 1,000% an all-star.
Not yet.
Yeah, and the other big thing that I just think can't be ignored is that when you get 55, 15, and 9 from Jimmy and Bam as a duo, to waste that and lose that game, that hurts. You got to get those.
Well, what's interesting Right.
Well, I can't figure out at this point why when Jimmy. It seems like the more Jimmy scores, the more likely we are to lose. And I never going into the season, I never thought that was going to be the case.
Yeah, that's been a weird thing all year. I gave that stat out a couple times here. They're now 12-2 when Jimmy has 5 field goals or fewer. He got to 5 field goals in about the first 6 minutes tonight. They're actually what's even crazier is they're 16-3 this season when Jimmy doesn't play or has 5 field goals or fewer. It's like Spoelstra said, it's not like they don't want him to score, but it does seem like sometimes when he's scoring a lot that other guys don't get involved. Here's a couple takeaways for me. It's interesting to me that you're talking about Bam being an all-star tonight because while I agree with you, I don't think Bam was particularly good tonight for him. The stat line was really good, but there was no physicality there at all. Like, if you look at those offensive rebounds late in the game, he was letting guys get behind him. I think what you really saw at the end of that game is there are going to be some games that they need another big next to him. Because when it's him and DJJ or him and Duncan Robinson, if Bam is not rebounding consistently, and I know they had a pretty good JJ stint tonight, then they're going to have problems on the backboards. They just are. So I thought his numbers looked really good, but I don't think this was the kind of Bam game that I think he's sort of made his mark with. The other thing I would say is they got to look better against the zone. They used it against Philly, but it was really effective against them tonight. And we just get out of the locker room, and Dragic was asked why Butler didn't touch the ball more at the end of the game, and he said, well, the zone took us out of our offense. So they've got to clean that up also.
Yeah, I mean, it's so ironic that the zone would throw them for a loop the way that they did, but it goes back to this roster and this offense is built. They need the shooters to make shots. The high upside of this team was always going to be that if the shooters were hitting shots, and tonight they didn't see that. And with Bam, I kind of agree with you from the standpoint of kind of the intangible stuff that he does and some of the passing and getting other guys involved, defense effort, particularly in the second half. We didn't quite see the same Bam Adebayo that we normally see, but I think some of that can be attributed to the fact that he had to carry more of the offensive load. He was actually looking to get his shot, and they were going to him a bit there. And that kind of took away from maybe some of the other aspects of his game.
One of the things, and few people pointed out on Twitter, you guys, John, I guess give your take. Derek Jones Jr. in the closing lineup, the fact that they don't have to respect him from the perimeter. He took a 3, missed it poorly in the last few seconds of the game. What did you see from Derek Jones Jr. at the end of the game? Does he belong out there with, like Ethan likes to say, the 5 on the floor to close the game?
Oh man, I don't know. I'm not sure when you need points that he's the guy you want shooting a 3. So I mean, defensively he brings a lot to the table, but I don't think he was the one that really should have taken that shot at that moment. I mean, with like 10 seconds left, I think, down by 3.
They kind of were just leaving him. He was the guy to leave open.
Yeah.
And, you hope that he can defensively make up for that and that he can be dynamic enough offensively in transition that he can still get minutes. But as the game slows down in the playoffs, it is something to think about. And Ethan alluded to it earlier about needing another big. This DJJ at the 4 thing, it works out well most of the time. But when the game slows down, if he is not impacting the game in the ways that he does, particularly offensively and with some of the rebounding and defensive stuff, like then what? You got to go to somebody else, and that's where you kind of get in a weird spot if JJ and KO are not playing well.
Is this one of the games where they miss Justise or a James Johnson type at the end of a game?
Yeah, well, I thought JJ played pretty well today. I mean, we say they miss Justise, but I mean, we have to get to the point where we just have to assume they're not going to have Justise. Right?
Yep.
Like, are we
correct?
Are we gonna do this after every game? I mean, can I address that a little bit too, and then we'll get back to this DJJ topic. There was a report today, or was thrown out there was a report. I'm not really sure it was a report. Ira, I said guest sent on the radio something to the effect, and I didn't hear it. So this is secondhand, and then I think it got misinterpreted on Twitter and some other places. But something to the effect of, that Justise wanted to get out there and the team was quote unquote babying him. And again, I don't know that Ira put it in those terms, so I don't want to misquote him, but I can tell you that I've heard the exact opposite. So I don't really know what to make of that, because I've heard all along that, and I think you have, Leif, and I know others, pretty prominent people who follow the Heat in the media have similar information to me, because we've shared it and we've gotten it from different places, but it's all the same, which is basically that, they've wanted Justise to push through it, and it's been more of a pain tolerance issue and a diagnosis issue. And so that's where that is right now. And that, he tries to come back, and then it wasn't just that they ruled him out for tonight. I mean, Spoelstra ruled him out immediately for Sunday. And this is kind of why I said on the podcast about a week and a half ago, I thought it was going to be a while for Justise, because that was the information that I had, particularly after he went and got another opinion. And then all of a sudden he was back, right? And maybe there was some kind of a meeting in the minds there, but now he's gone again. And so I think, Alf, we got to stop doing that. You know what I mean? Like, we keep saying, well, if they had Justise, like until I see Justise play like 3 consecutive weeks, I'm going to assume they're not going to have Justise.
Well, that's why I threw in the James Johnson caveat there.
He can be, but the thing is, look, JJ made a couple threes tonight, but he's not a plus 3-point shooter either. The reality is that really the guy who was supposed to be playing in those minutes with Bam was Kelly. I mean, if you go back to the beginning of the season and you were to say, okay, who's going to be the player, the big out there with Bam late in game?
KO.
Who could make a three and handle the ball? It was Kelly, right? But he's completely fallen out of the rotation. I almost feel like we've given that short shrift. Like, we've just kind of assumed he's out of it now because he hasn't played well. But they were counting on him at the beginning of this season. So I don't know if it's the knee injury from playing with the Canadian team or what, but he's not in the mix. And so what's happened now is you don't really have a set closing five because you don't have Winslow, you don't have Olynyk. And, tonight, look, he's always going to lean on Dragic, okay? And I understand why. He's always going to lean on Dragic. Nunn got very few minutes tonight after the beginning of each beginning stint, but he's always going to lean on Goran. But, Goran over-dribbled a little bit tonight. And, of course, with Goran out there, you're small. So I just don't think that they're going to have, a set closing lineup this entire season. It's going to be Jimmy and it's going to be Bam, and the other three guys are going to switch off.
And I think that there definitely stands to be some, at least you should take a gander at what consolidating some of this looks like. And I don't know that they're going to be able to pull anything like that off, without attaching assets and things like that. But, Kelly can be a useful player elsewhere. So you would think that maybe you would start to look at ways that you could plug a new guy in that maybe would fit and is playing better now. Because you're right. I mean, they are kind of one guy short to close games.
Next game is going to be on Sunday against the Knicks. If the Heat are able to come away from this road trip, like Leif was saying earlier, they're on a 3-game road trip. If they can come away 2-1, even despite tonight's disappointing loss, do you consider this a successful road trip? I'll start with you, Brass.
I mean, yeah, but not in this order. I mean, I sort of expected, Indiana to cause a little bit of a headache, and well, that was a cakewalk compared to this.
Great minds think alike.
Honestly, honestly, the Knicks, I never trust the Knicks to just roll over for us. So, I mean, on the road, we're an average road team. The Heat are an average road team, and so if you get 2-1, I'll take it.
I think what's interesting about it, getting to what John's saying, we've had a couple of situations lately where the Heat have beat the team we didn't think they were going to beat and lost to the team we thought they were going to beat. And I think that's not what was happening early in the season, right? But now all of a sudden it's kind of flipped where they've had some bad losses. Memphis is playing much better lately, so I don't know if that was such a bad loss. But they had the loss in Memphis. They've had, a couple of others, the Washington loss, and then they've come back and beaten good teams, beaten the Toronto, beaten the Philadelphia, right, beaten Indiana. And so, look, Sunday is a gimme. I mean, it should be. I mean, if they don't win Sunday, there's real issues. Okay, so I think they'll win Sunday. They're going to keep that stat alive that they haven't lost back-to-back games. They're going to be 28-11, which is nearly a 60-win pace again. And, they're pretty close to that magic 30-11 number, guys, which we all know what that means. And it's going to be a terrific first half of the season, and they're going to be in position for Spoelstra to coach the All-Star team, which is something he doesn't want to do. But I just think that when you look at it, we keep calling them a mediocre road team. I mean, they are, but Jason Jackson made the point in the locker room when he was asking a question that only a third of the teams in the league are above 500 on the road. So it's not that uncommon to be 500 on the road and still be considered a good team. I think the issue is more this focus thing on the road. Dragic touched on, he said the effort and the energy were fine. The focus was not there. And that's kind of what I saw tonight, is that, they were losing. They'd get 20 seconds into a possession and then lose a guy, right? Or let somebody leak through for an offensive rebound. They've got to commit more, to the entire clock. And the other thing is, this is a try-hard team, okay? They can't start to think they're really good, because when that happens, this thing could fall apart pretty quickly.
I think, and that's one of the things I saw tonight, Ethan. Every time they went up by 7, 9, 12, they seemed to relax instead of put their foot on the throat of a bad team. And this was a team that with a bunch of what Twitter would call random scrub heat killers, where you didn't know where it was coming from. So if they relaxed for even a second, you had guys. I can't even pronounce that French guy's name, who was going nuts. Right?
And at the beginning of the season, they were winning these games. The games that you thought they were going to win, they were winning every single one of them. So that's another thing, is when you see a little bit of that regression, you start to think, is this a little bit of a mental thing, that they're feeling themselves a little bit, which, is a little bit human nature, but something that can be corrected.
And we talked about the fact that they were – sorry, John, go ahead.
No, these bad losses, they're stupid. They're stupid and they're unforgivable. However, at the end of the day, when you get into playoff time, I trust this team to step up, though. I still don't think most of these losses tonight in particular, there's nothing to really take away from it, other than, like Dragic said in the locker room, it's a focus issue, which they can do. They can mentally overcome that. So I still think that this team is going to kind of get things together later in the season.
And they haven't lost. And they haven't lost many of these games where it came down to the final few seconds, final minute. This was one of the first games they lost where they lost a ton of these last year, where within 4 or 5 points in the last minute of the game, they just couldn't execute down the stretch. This was one of the first time. This was one of the first times we saw them just completely lack any kind of execution in the last 90 seconds of a game. Whereas before, I mean, you almost felt good with 45 seconds left and the Heat down by 3. You knew they were going to pull something out of their ass. But tonight, it just was not there. They could not summon it. And, just going forward, at the end of the day, we know that this is a good team and that this was a one-off, instead of where last year we felt like this was more of last few years where we felt like this was more of the norm, where it's within 5 in the last 90 seconds and you just feel like the Heat are going to collapse down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, true. But with that being said, I think we have to put this into context, right? Like, if you looked at this before the season, you would say we're 27-11 at this point, and Erik Spoelstra would be this angry about one road loss. You would feel pretty good about it because the expectations have risen so much. I mean, that's really where they're at. I mean, whatever we thought they were going to be before the year, and I know all of us thought they would be better than a lot of the national pundits did. I don't think that any of us thought they'd be here, right? But clearly, Spoelstra has raised the bar now. He's making the point, this is not good enough, all right? And so I think we have to evaluate this team slightly differently now, and because they're evaluating it differently. If they're going to make a run this year, they need to play more physically. I don't think they're going to win a ton of playoff games playing the way they did tonight from a physicality standpoint. It's not just the 50-50 balls that they talked about, but they did not impose themselves on Brooklyn at all from the very beginning. And even though they took that lead and scored 69 in the first half, the easy threes that the Nets were getting early in the game, I thought kind of set the tone for everything. And Jimmy spoke to that after the game. We asked him about the defense. I asked kind of what was the biggest problem, is the perimeters and inside. He kind of said it's everything, and it was from the very beginning. And I think they have to get back to a defensive mentality every game, because the offense for them, it will be there, I think, but But I also think there, like you said, there are some issues. You know, they're going to play Derek Jones Jr. more minutes. They're going to have to deal with 25% three-point shooting. You know, I mean, people used to complain about Justice. He shot 38% from three the past 2 years. Okay, so that's a significant drop-off. So these are things they need to figure out. I don't think, like I said, one loss, you know, in January is not the end of the world. But there are things they need to work through, and not having a useful Kelly Olynyk is hurting them. Not having Justise Winslow, and we don't know when, has hurt them. But they got to make do with what they've got. So that's it. Any closing thoughts, Leif, before we end this one?
I have a solution to all their problems. Just make sure that they have home court, and they're good.
Well, that's true. The Embiid injury helps with that. So we'll see where that goes. All right, that's Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alphonse Sidney, headed to the Gold Club. John Kozan, who's down the hall from me right now. I'm leaving Brooklyn. I'll be at practice tomorrow. We'll have a bunch of content on 5 Reasons Sports. I'll be at the Knicks game on Sunday. And I got a piece coming out. I talked to pretty much every player on the roster about their first encounter with Jimmy Butler when he came to Miami, and I got some pretty good stories. So that'll be on Monday or Tuesday. Check out Guts Check with Leif on Tuesday. Nikias Duncan obviously has his launching pad on Monday. And thanks again to Seltzer Mayberg, another of our great sponsors. Find them at onecalllegal.com. Make sure to spell it out, O-N-E, calllegal.com. Someone there 24 hours a day to handle your legal claim, whether it's immigration, personal injury, or just about anything else. So go to Seltzer Mayberg. Again, that's onecalllegal.com. Thanks for holding it down, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Five on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.